Dumelang, Sanbonani. Welcome to the second edition of the I Choose to Be Active campaign's Womandla and Fitness webinar, brought to us by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. We are going to observe 30 seconds moment of silence as we remember the lives of those who have been lost because of gender-based violence and femicide. It is the mission of I Choose to Be Active to encourage all of South Africans to start, pursue, and commit to a physically active lifestyle. To hear more about the why and the how we can all as South Africans adopt such a healthy and active wellness lifestyle, please let us listen to the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Minister Natim Tetwa, as he gives all of us South Africans a message on the why and how of such a lifestyle. Please take a look.
We don't only expect athletes to be active, but the whole of South Africa. All of us have to be active to ensure that we reduce the diseases like heart diseases, take time to walk on a daily basis, cover at least 1-2 kilometers walk. It will make a difference. And once more, South Africans, let's be active. We need an active society so that people reduces many other things, including stress, including depression.
Every one of us should be active. You should be able to take walks. You should be able to engage in activities which are going to ensure that your body, which will help your mind as well to be active. And when we do that, we do it under the theme in the department, I choose to be active. How about you? Doesn't take much, but the benefits is that it contributes to the broader society being active and help us to have a healthy nation. It is our desire to get many South Africans to start a physically active routine, pursue and commit to it, as well as encourage their families, friends, and the community they live in to also commit to physically active lifestyle of health and wellness. After all, a healthy nation inspires us all to become a winning nation.
Are you following us on our Choose to Be Active platforms? We are on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and there's a community that's waiting for you to be a part of them. And for you to get hold of that, just register because the link is on all our I Choose to Be Active platforms on the bios. Thank you for joining us. On the 4th of March 2022, the world observed World Obesity Day under the theme, Everybody Needs to Act. It's become clear to all of us that we have a responsibility to curb this third pandemic. We are all being asked to look at what is it that triggers obesity and also demystify the myths and the misconceptions around obesity, whilst empowering those who are living with the disease to understand what is it that they can do in order to reduce obesity. Obesity, everyone needs to act, is the topic we are discussing today. And our panelists truly embody a lifestyle of people who have committed and in turn are encouraging other South Africans to start, pursue, and commit to a lifelong wellness. Allow me to introduce them to you. Dr. Bridget Huerman. Dr. Bridget Huerman holds a medical degree from the University of Witwatersrand in 1996, has worked as a general practitioner in private sector practice for 10 years prior to joining non-profit organization Right to Care. Dr. Huerman currently holds the position of medical manager at Thembaletu Clinic at the Helen Joseph Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Bridget Huerman. We are also joined by Matsepo Soka. Allow me please to introduce you to her. Matsepo Soka was weighing 160 kg in 2014. She has lost well over 23 kg by adopting a physically active lifestyle. She stopped making this journey about losing weight, but much more about adopting a healthier lifestyle for oneself. We cannot wait to unpack what she means by that. Dr. Huerman, welcome to Womanda in Fitness, second edition, where we are going to discuss this topic. I would like us to really discuss this in layman terms. What is obesity?
Thanks for the question, Kuyonem. I think it's so important that we understand exactly what the definition of obesity is.
Indeed.
And it's also very important that we clarify the differences between being overweight and being obese. Mm-hmm. So in ordinary layman's terms, obesity is having excess of body fat, and that usually is associated with complications that come as a result. So the more scientific definition, however, of being obese is defined by something called a body mass index. So what is a BMI? A BMI looks at the relationship between your weight and your height. So it defines whether or not for your height you are at the correct weight. So a BMI of below 25 is considered normal. Between 25 and 30 is considered overweight. And more than 30 is then defined scientifically as being obese. So it's critical that communities and individuals have a clear understanding of what exactly obesity is. And the difference between obesity and overweightness is that obesity is a disease, whereas being overweight is just carrying additional fat, but you haven't yet reached that threshold of being obese.
How does one know that they've reached the threshold, doctor?
Obviously you would measure your weight and your height would be measured. And as I've said, the relationship between your weight and your height, if it's more than 30, it will then push you into the definition of being an obese individual.
We've got a lot of myths and misconceptions around obesity.
True.
Added to that, we've got societal narratives that tend to upload the structure of those that are living with obesity. For example, we talk about women who are marriage material. We are often told of men who are perceived to be wealthy, or really as they saunter around in communities, we are told that it means that their women are looking after them. Now, how do we begin to amplify the need to unpack that that's actually not a sign of wealth, that's not a sign of being able to carry children better, or that you're marriage material, but that in fact it is a sickness?
I think when you're trying to drive home a message, it's always important to start with younger people. So I think it needs to be inculcated in our education system that from a very young age, we need to understand what are the medical or the physical implications of being obese. So that as we get older, we don't make it a fashionable thing to be obese, and we begin to counter these myths and these misconceptions of whether or not being obese is fashionable, or whether it is a sign of affluence or wealth, as is so often deemed as a definition of one who has umkhaba in society is then seen as a rich gentleman. Or in some cultures or in some societies, a newlywed bride would be encouraged to gain weight, because then it's a sign that she's been taken good care of by her husband, and it's a sign of marital bliss. So I think the younger we start educating our communities, our children. We should use multiple platforms to actually advocate for a healthy, energetic and active lifestyle, because there's a new saying that the new wealth is health. So there are these narratives that we need to inculcate in our families. And I always say the family unit is such a powerful unit where we begin to instill cultures and we begin to demystify misconceptions and we begin to educate our youngsters to say, we know that society says this, but that is not a correct impression of the realities of obesity, because the reality of obesity is that it is a disease. So I think for the longest time, we haven't defined it as a disease. We've seen it as something that portrays a healthy and a wealthy lifestyle, which is not true.
Sure. I love that. In fact, I love the quote there, the new wealth is health, and that we need to kickstart with our children. What is the difference between someone who is healthy in terms of the percentage rates of them in relation to morbidity and mortality vis-a-vis somebody who's living with obesity? Care to unpack that?
Sure. So let's start by defining what mortality is and what morbidity is.
Thank you.
So morbidity, as you can deduce, comes from the word morbid. So it's a state of unwellness. It's a state of disease. Whereas mortality is a state of death. When we talk about morbidity rates, we're talking about how unwell a certain population is. So if we compare morbidity rates between healthy persons and obese persons, you can only imagine that the healthy person will have a lower morbidity rate because they don't have the diseases that come with being obese. So the obese person will have a higher morbidity rate than a normal healthy person, for the simple reason that obesity in and of itself brings along a whole range of diseases. And that is why you are more morbid or you have a higher morbidity rate as an obese person. Mortality rates then speak to the possibility of death. So if I'm healthy, my chances of dying are much lower than someone who's obese and has all these added factors such as heart disease, strokes, diabetes, that then pushes them closer to the death curve than someone who's healthy. So the distinct differences are that in a healthy person, morbidity is lower than an obese person. In a healthy person, mortality rates are lower than obese persons.
Why would obesity result in those illnesses? Again, in layman terms.
Okay. So remember what I said right at the beginning, that the definition of, the layman's definition of obesity is excess of fat. And where is this fat? So the fat will then accumulate around very critical body organs, like your heart, your kidneys, your liver. Because the fat is accumulating around very critical organs that you need to keep to sustain your life, you will then develop certain diseases. And I'll give you a few examples. One of the biggest organs that are targeted by obesity is the heart. So what happens is that the big blood vessels in the heart, they get clogged up by fat. So if you can imagine a hose pipe, and inside the hose pipe, you start getting blotches of fat growing inside. So the propensity or the ability of the water to pass through the hose pipe is then limited. So the blood flows less through the blood vessel to the heart muscle. So if the heart doesn't get enough blood, it suffocates, it doesn't get oxygen, and as a result, you get a stroke or a heart attack. The same with diabetes. If you get fat cells around your liver or around other body cells that are supposed to take in the glucose, if there's too much fat, it blocks the insulin. And now you get too much insulin in your blood, and you get insulin in your blood, glucose in your bloodstream. And as a result, you now become resistant to the insulin because there's too much fat around your liver and other cells. And then you become diabetic. Another case in point, when we are obese as well, we tend to, I'm sure we all know grannies or old elderly persons who have difficulty with mobility. They struggle to walk because when your weight is bearing too much on your knees, you then develop something called osteoarthritis. So that is usually why arthritis is commonly in the knees of very big people. They're carrying too much weight. So there are a lot of body parts that are unduly affected by obesity because there's too much fat suffocating or limiting the productivity or the ability of that organ to function normally. Another example would be the kidneys, where you get damage to the kidney internally, and then as a result, you get kidney disease from being obese.
Sure.
Yeah.
I hope at home you are taking notes, because for the first time, for myself at least, I'm able to understand why we speak of obesity as a sickness, and really what are the impacts of one who's obese to their physical structure. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to someone who's been able to overcome obesity and be able to understand what led to her becoming obese and how did she begin to manage the disease in order to become a physically active individual who is now able to do a lot of things that she was not able to do. And in that conversation, we'll bring Dr. Hueman again to be able to reflect on the nuances around the narrative that she will be sharing with us, so that we can begin to apply the principles of what we have been able to share with you today. Thank you. We'll be back after this. I choose to be active. How about you? Welcome back. We are now joined by Ms. Matshepo Suoka, a humanitarian, an advocate for a physical and healthy lifestyle, and of course, an authoress, whom I had the privilege of actually attending her book launch, but that's a discussion for another day. Now, Matshepo, you have shared with us your story, and it centers quite strongly around your struggles with obesity. Care to share with us this story? Where did it all start? And what do you think caused you to become obese?
Thank you very much for that question. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very, very excited. So the story really started for me. I would definitely say that I grew up being quite an overweight child, you know, and I realized now actually that it was due to the things that I was going through, the childhood trauma that I'd faced. I mean, I didn't grow up with my father. That's one thing a lot of people know about me. That is almost my keynote, I would say. And I think then I turned to food as a means of comfort, you know. So then I think it started from a very young age. At first, I didn't see it. My family didn't see it. They all just thought, I mean, she's just being a child. And as I grew older, I mean, getting into my preteens, in my teens, like I just ran to food for comfort, you know. Food was just the one thing that wouldn't let me down. Food was the one thing that would make me happy. Food was the one thing that wouldn't disappoint me. And that really is where it really transpired. You know, that's what happened to me. You know, I think that the things that I went through, the trauma that I faced, it led me to running to food for comfort, you know, running to food for motivation, until it got to a point where it was just too much, you know. And I did go through trying all these different diets, because at some point I realized that, okay, this is just not okay, you know, because as a young child, you realize that other children are very, very abusive, very harsh, you know, children are mean, and I would see how they would tend to bully me because of my weight. I mean, having friends that were quite smaller than me, that made me very self-conscious as well. And I think even from that, some few psychological issues developed as well. But yeah, I think when I saw what was happening, when I saw how I was being treated by the other kids, I thought, okay, now it's definitely time to do something about it. So I would have those seasons where, you know, we'd go to the gym, my mom would sign me up, you know, I'd try different things. I tried dancing at some point. I mean, that was a passion that I really loved. And then I would do the dieting thing for like 3 days. I think when I was younger, I would push for at least 3 days. And then after that, we're just going back, because I didn't really understand the process of a healthy lifestyle. Because at that point for me, it was about just losing weight so I can be skinny like the other kids. It wasn't for the bigger reason and the bigger purpose behind it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love there's such power in what you said. Food never let me down. Food made me happy. Yeah. At which point did you realize that this is actually what's causing me to become even more hurtful towards myself? It's not solving the problem. When did you realize that?
Sure, that would definitely have to be the year 2014 for me. I remember it was one Sunday afternoon. I think, again, as I've mentioned, I would go through these seasons where I'd try these quick diets, and I'd want to lose weight. But that weekend, I remember particularly that Sunday, my mom and I, we were at the mall, and I just said, Mama, it's time. I knew there was something in me that just said, it is time, And I remember all I did was, okay, let's buy a scale. I remember very clearly, this was 2014 on the 23rd of March. But I remember just saying, Mama, let's buy a scale. And we got the scale. And I remember also saying to her, but Mama, what if I get it wrong? What if, because I've tried this many times before, what if I fall this time as well? And she said, you know what, Mathapo, it's not about how many times you fall, but how many times you get up after that fall. And that inspired me. I think that was the change that I needed at that point. Those were the words that I needed to keep me going. That, you know what, even if I've fallen, but the fact that I keep on trying. And I knew that this time it had to be different, So that time for me, I just said, no, I need to live better, because I was also, being aware of the kind of life that I was living. I was, I believe, 17 at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And I was, at an age where I could see that, okay, eating unhealthy, eating as much as I do, it's not really working that well in my favor. But another big thing as well was that because I was into dancing at the time, I was dancing ballroom and Latin, I used to struggle a lot with finding dance partners, because most of the time the boys would want to go for the girls who, have the figure for it, who are easy to carry, who are easy to dance with. And we would have times where maybe we have a tryout and then the guy comes and then he never comes back. That was very difficult for me, because dancing was something I genuinely enjoyed. It was something I genuinely loved, and having that disappointment where here's something I love, I want to compete, I want to go on stage, I want to do all these things, but my weight is a factor that is disturbing that was an issue. So I think that was also one of the biggest motivators for me at the time, in addition to seeing how I'm really affecting my body in a bad way. Dancing, my love for dance was one of my reasons to push me and say, okay, we definitely need to do something about it. And I was going to varsity the following year. So I also knew that, okay, girl, it's time to it's time to get your life.
To deal with this.
Yeah.
Go fetch your life.
Yeah.
Fetch your body.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned a couple of things, and I just want to take it back a little bit. What other impact in terms of physical health did you being obese result in?
I'm very blessed actually that I didn't really struggle that much with like chronic illnesses. What helped a lot is that I was into the dancing, and that is a fitness activity itself. I think what really worked against me was the fact that I would dance, would go to the session, because we'd practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Sundays. That's 3 times a week. So I would go to the sessions, and then when I get home, I eat a very big portion, so that's what was really working against me. But I think that activity that I had really helped me not to really develop a lot of serious chronic illnesses, because of my weight. But I think for me, the biggest impact would have been on my my psyche, actually.
I was about to say
that was the big thing.
Absolutely, because we've discussed the physical, but I was going to say, but what about the mental health?
Yeah.
Care to unpack that?
Sure.
What was the impact there? share?
Yeah, so I've had a journey with mental health, quite a journey. And right now, when I share about it, I usually share from 2014 up to now. I never really talk about pre-2014. And that's actually where the root of my mental health issues came from. I believe that, like I mentioned earlier on, that trauma that I faced from not having my father around, having him reject me, was difficult. Then I ran to food for comfort, for solace. And then realizing what that food was doing to my body, and how people were treating me as a result of that, then that just created a never-ending cycle. I became self-conscious. My self-esteem was so low. I would compare myself to people, even on things that didn't really matter. Oh no, I'm really tall. I'm taller than my group of friends. I'm bigger. I'm darker. So it really just created a cycle of issues that were not good for me, and that really impacted me and my mental health. I developed anxiety around that time. I remember now I usually share that my major anxiety attack was in 2014, but it actually started, I remember one specific one was in grade 9, where I had this anxiety attack because of the pressure. I feel that all these things that I was feeling inside, how I didn't love my body, how I felt about myself, it really led me to just getting to a point I was just in a panic, in such a haze. I just felt like it was all too much, But besides that, the depression, that's where my depression really developed. I was going through all these issues with my dad, and then how I'm feeling about my body is not really helping as well. And then, depression is almost inevitable in that circumstance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I actually believe that as much as in that I talk about my challenges with mental health from 2014 up to now, I actually think that the root was before that. The root was, one of the root causes was because of how I was feeling about my body. That self-esteem, the confidence, that's really where my mental health challenges developed from. So as much as I didn't really have a huge physical effect or chronic illness, but my mental health, the state of my mental health as a young child was severely impacted. Yeah.
And it didn't help that from early on, the children that you played alongside with would also play their part in adding to the woes of mental anguish that you were going through as a result of being obese. Yeah. But we are here now.
Yeah.
We are here now, and you have lost 23 kg since 2014.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal transformation. I love that you also wrote in your profile, which you shared with us, where you said that at one point you used to preach thick and proud. Why do you say that you were wrong in speaking that way?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. I think I'll definitely say that when it comes to that concept of being thick and proud, that's something I really stood by quite a lot. As I was developing out of my preteen and getting to my teenage years, that was something that was so big to me. Till today, I really stand for that, being proud of who you are as a person and how you look. But I think that the reason why I went about it the wrong way is that, yes, I'm preaching being thick and proud, which is amazing, but I was poisoning my body. When I say I was poisoning my body, when I think back now at the way that I used to eat and the lifestyle that I was leading, I'm just like, I really was just digging my own grave without seeing it, especially in the long run, So I was going about it the wrong way, because here I am trying to spread a message, but then I am not really doing anything that speaks positively to what I'm saying, Yes, being thick and proud, it is amazing. Be proud of who you are as a person. Whatever body size you're at. Because another thing that I've also realized with this journey is that it stops being solely about the weight loss.
Yeah.
When you stop making it just about the weight loss, you really see that this is bigger than just it being about the weight loss. So for me, I actually had to realize that no, I can't just keep focusing on the fact that, my body looks like this. I need to, be intentional about taking care of my body behind the scenes, not just focusing on standing in front of people and saying, yes, I'm proud, knowing very well that I was not actually as proud as I claimed to be, you know. So, but if I'm able to say, okay, I am putting in the work, I'm exercising, I'm eating right, even though my body's not reacting the way I thought it would, I genuinely will feel good about myself. You know, that's why at some point it stops being just about how many kilos am I dropping. It becomes, okay, you know what, I'm doing the right thing. I am taking care of my body. I'm loving my body by giving it the right things that it needs, by working out. And therefore, I'm proud of who I am as a person. I'm proud of Matepo. I'm proud of how I look. I'm confident, you know. So I was going about it the wrong way because I was just not giving my body the right things it needs, you know. Should something, if I maybe had a chronic illness that developed from that, I mean, how would it have matched up with what I was saying in public, that I'm thick and proud, you know, but now this is what's going on.
So it becomes a facade. So how do you keep up with the consistency? What do you do from Monday to Monday, I suppose? What do you do?
Sure. I think for me, what really happened along the way, because this has been quite since 2014. And I mean, from 2014 to 2015, I'd lost about 43 kilograms. Like, so that first year, I went all hard. I was all in. I said, listen, I'm going to varsity. I need to fetch my body. I need to do the right thing, you know. So that year, I was really all in. And I mean, I went to the gym consistently. I changed my diet, you know, the first 21 days, I remember, and this is something I always tell people, that I paced myself. You know, when I started, I said, for this 21 days, I'm going to really teach myself how to eat small portions. And I knew that by doing that, that's a way to activate my mindset. Because I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. We don't start with it up here. You know, we don't activate our mindset and change the way we think about a particular thing. So I said, okay, I'm going to activate my mindset with this. I'm going to start to teach myself how to eat smaller portions. And then from that, I started introducing things into my diet, taking out things, the sugar aspect, you know, removing sugary items from my diet, you know, having more healthier options. And that's how things just, you know, grew. And then it got to that point where I'd lost so much weight, which I'm so proud of. And, you know, going to the gym was a very big factor. So now I just would like to add that around that time, my mental health issues really started to grow. They were impacting my personal life a lot.
And what was the trigger, if you don't mind asking?
The trigger was from the daddy issues that I was facing, the rejection, you know. So I think at that point, I just blew up. You know, I really blew up.
But why did it come back? You are now sitting, it's 2014, you've lost the weight.
Yes.
You've realized that, in fact, you are harming yourself more by reaching out for food, to give you the happiness that you so desire. How then were you still sitting with the mental health issues?
Yeah, sure. You know, and it's a very good question that you asked there. I think I was I was fixing the symptoms, right? Remember, my eating habits and everything that I was doing was actually a symptom of the actual problem, the root. And I had not dealt with the root, which was the rejection that I felt, the pain that I felt from that rejection. So, I mean, I went into 2015 really just, I mean, I'd moved from Pretoria to Cape Town, the University of Cape Town. Yes, University of Cape Town. Yes. And for me, I thought, you know what, I'm getting away from my problems. It felt almost like that, you know. So I went to this new place.
And Cape Town does have that. I mean,
that
I
feel,
know exactly what you're talking
you
about.
know. And I got there, and I mean, I used the gym. Definitely, gym and eating right was my therapy. But I think that through that, I was now, you know, fixing the symptom of the actual root. I had not gone back to the actual root of the problem. And that's why I got to this point where I had this major breakdown. And then from that point, that's how I gained some of the weight back. I mean, through the treatments that I was going through, the antidepressants, that journey was a whole journey on its own. But what I was trying to get to really is that gym, working out, fitness has been my therapy. And that's when people always ask me, Matepo, I mean, how are you this consistent? You know, what keeps you going? What makes you wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do this? I mean, my mom was saying to me the other day that, Matepo, I hear you leaving home at like 5:30, and I'm like, this girl is so dedicated. And I'm like, you know, I know how it felt like when I was in that state where I didn't love how I felt about my body, you know, and that's also one of the things that keeps me going, that motivates me, I will definitely say. But fitness, honestly, this lifestyle, it's therapy for me, because I know that that's one of the ways that I get to love on myself, that I get to take care of Matshepo, you know, so that's why I'm as consistent as I am. I think what changed for me is that I stopped seeing it as something I have to do, but something I get to do. Okay. I mean, this is something I get to do for my body, something that I get to, you know, give back to my body, you know. So my routine, honestly, it consists of, I mean, from Monday, I think about 5 days. I average 5 days a week, if I can, 6 days. And that's mostly, I alternate between running or cycling or just doing high impact interval training during the week. And honestly, again, I'd really want to iterate that it has stopped becoming something that I have to do. It's something I want to do. It's something I get to do. I wake up genuinely excited to give myself that 1 hour during the day to do that for my body. And it takes care, again, of my mental health, because like I said, I've gone through some really severe mental health challenges. So fitness, even my mom says that, you know, had it not been for the gym and this lifestyle that you're leading, I don't know where we would have been, because I've seen you go through the lowest points, but always show up when it comes to that. And that has been one of the things, in addition to the therapy that you're doing, that has carried you. Yeah.
Because I really wanted us to get there. Because you talk about a year later, then you broke down and you started going for therapy.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask us to pause this one, because I'd like us to come back and talk to you know, what is often spoken of as the psychological burden of obesity. And we're going to bring back Dr. Hueman, and we're going to do this right after this break. Thank you. Welcome back. Earlier on, we had the opportunity to listen to Matshepo's story, a very poignant and powerful story on how at one point in her life, she used food to deal with that which was painful, and the struggle of depression led her to become obese. We do know, though, that there's also the other scenario, and we are joined again by Dr. Hueman for us to discuss the narrative that I was able to gain an understanding of from one research article that I read that highlighted that adults with excess weight had a 55% higher risk of developing depression over the lifetime compared to people that did not struggle with obesity. So herein, we're looking at how obesity in itself causes mental health problems, whereas in Matshepo's case, we were discussing how mental health problems led to obesity. Now, Dr. Hueman, let us discuss that in detail. How does society's attitudes and stereotypes affect people living with obesity in as far as increasing mental woes to what they're already dealing with, what we often speak of as fat shaming?
Thanks for that brilliant question, Q&M. I think as society, we've developed narratives that ultimately cause more harm than good. And I'll give you a few examples. The narrative that, central obesity in men specifically is associated with affluence and well-to-doness in society, and often people are applauded for being big. When it comes to females, the thinner you are, there's an assumption that you must be ill, and often we used to make the association of being underweight with HIV, for instance. And people would become the brunt of societal gossip, and in the communities it would be frowned upon as a young woman to be so skinny. And so we often find that as young women, we are, especially in an African culture and an African society, being overweight and being obese is encouraged, because it just gives the impression that you are a happy soul, your heart is open, you are well taken care of by your spouse, you don't have issues. Whereas on the other hand, if we look at more westernized cultures and societies, the leaner you are or the thinner you are, the more beautiful you are. So those are some of the confusing narratives that often affect and impact young girls. And if we are not careful, they then begin to grow up with this confusion around body image, because there are distorted images that they see. On the one hand, you're encouraged to be big. On the one hand, it's more fashionable to be thin. So already when you're growing up as a youngster, you're dealing with the psychological impact of being an adolescent and all the baggage that comes with that. Added to that, when you have these confusing narratives, and you are not, the culture of being okay with your body is not encouraged at home, and you are not taught healthy habits. You are not taught that it is not okay to be obese, though it's perpetuated in some societies that the bigger you are, the better, as Matsepo had highlighted earlier, and that she was pushing the narrative of, thicker and proud. So I think it's so critical that we begin to dispel these myths, because they are so inherent in what society does to push youngsters over the edge. And along with it, the psychology of not only causing distorted body image and the body shaming that goes along with, on the one hand, as a child, when you're obese, you get teased. You become the brunt of rejection, as Matsepo so poignantly highlighted. And we all know what it's like and how lonely it can be for a child who's growing with obesity to just not be part of the in crowd. And when you grow up with that constant rejection and the pain of it, some people do find comfort in food. And ultimately, the weight gain gets worse. Now, I want to highlight the fact that genetically, some of us might be predisposed to being obese, but genetics in and of themselves do not necessarily cause obesity. So it is all these, the narratives, the myths, the behavior patterns that we grow up in that ultimately influences how we become and how we see ourselves in terms of body image. So the distorted body images often come from the narratives that are promoted in our societies. So I think it's so important that whatever we teach our children as youngsters is so very important. What they are taught at schools is so critical, because I can tell you, if a child says, my teacher said, you've lost the argument. So it's critical that, as I've said earlier on, the psychology of obesity, in terms of it leading to depression and depression leading to obesity, is so pertinent. And we need to not shame our children and not allow them to shame others, because that is another aspect of this, where our children become the bullies to children that are obese, because they also don't understand that when I tease an obese child, I'm actually perpetuating that obesity, because I'm driving them back to the source of the obesity. So I just think that it's such a huge problem, and but the beauty of it all is the hopeful stories like Matsepo's story, that this can be beaten. But it needs to start at a very young age, at grassroots. I think often we have the mistake and make the mistake of looking at governments and society, outward locuses of control to change the narratives on obesity. It starts at home. It starts with me as a mother, how I envisage myself. Am I confident about how I look? Do I then encourage my offspring, my child, my son, my daughter, to also take on the same pride in their image and to say, let's walk, let's run, let's wake up, like Matsepo was saying, and get into healthy habits, because that's where it starts. We shouldn't let our kids get into a state of depression because they are obese and then want to act, because I think then it's late. But you only have to look at the way we've become this instant society. Everything is instant. The food we eat is instant. We just constantly rushing, and everything we want needs to come now. So that gratification of now and here is also contributing to this obesity culture. And what it often does is that we don't cook healthy meals. We want to drop in quickly at the takeaway store and grab whatever we can. We teach our kids that Spikos is the thing, the way to go. So it's such a vast topic that I don't think there's a golden or silver bullet to. It's just a societal problem, and it's multifaceted, but I still believe that it begins at an individual level for us to overcome this.
So by not calling it out, right, and pretending that it doesn't exist, or not wanting to talk about it to someone that you are closer to, say that you are obese, you are then not helping that person, because, World Obesity Day says everybody needs to act, and in acting we need to do something about it. But on the other hand, if I call it out, somebody else might think I'm fat shaming them. So how do we then deal with it?
That's a fantastic question. So I think, if you look at the statistics, a third of South Africans are overweight and obese. And it's more female than male. And 13% of our children are obese compared to 10% globally.
Yes.
That is major stats. And it's frightening statistics as well. So I think where we strike the balance, Naniki, without body shaming someone, is when you don't call out the obesity to shame someone, but you call it out because you are concerned about the person. Like you would rightly say, you're coughing, let's look into this TB. If you're scared to go to the clinic, I can come with you. Or I know someone that can assist you and navigate you through the process. So when we raise the issues around obesity and how to manage it, it's so important that we don't just call it out and not provide support. You need to, for instance, if I was to embark on a fitness journey on my own, I know that I would last the 3 days that the diet lasted with Matsepo and just bomb out because the support is not there. So it's so important that for us to overcome this collectively is to say, if I can see that a sister of mine is blowing up every time we get to a family gathering, I need to say to her, hey, sis, now you must be living the good life, but this can't be right that you've gained so much more weight than the last time I saw you. It's not healthy. Do you know that you can get 1 to 3 ailments and chronic diseases from being this overweight? Are you aware of the implications of being this overweight? I think we can together start to do something about this. You start sharing healthy recipes with each other. You visit each other. You check in. Did you manage to go to the gym today? How was it? Sure. Let's do a walk on a Saturday. Let's go to a park run in my area. So it's not enough to just call it out, but provide support when you can. Even if you've got the best looking body and your sister is struggling with obesity, just by looking at you with the hourglass figure, they might actually feel so demotivated and even more depressed that not all of us are born like Naniki. So then I will start to eat more because, genetically I'm not cut out for this. But if Naniki is going to start to encourage me on a fitness journey and wants to journey with me, then it becomes so much easier. Family fitness programs are also very good. Like on a weekend in the mornings, instead of lounging around on the couch watching cartoons or whatever it is that we do, or going to eat fatty foods at the next takeaway outlet, we can take walks, half an hour, So I think the narrative around exercise being too demanding and it's work. If you see fitness like Matsepo says, it's something that she gets to do, then it becomes a lifestyle. So when we inculcate the culture of fitness is not about an exercise program because I have an end goal to lose weight. But fitness is a lifestyle in this family. We walk, we run, we cycle, we swim. There has to be some physical activity that happens in this household. And again, it comes back to the household. And when there are the bigger family gatherings with the extended family, we then privately sit and talk about it as sisters and then start those little groups. And you'd be amazed at how just by having support from others, the responses are so overwhelming and people start to feel good. Because remember the psychology as well of engaging on exercise programs is that when you are obese, you feel so isolated and alone. Nobody else understands how I feel. Nobody else has my weight. I'm so lonely. And the minute you go out to the gym, you meet others. You start making friendships. When you're running on the road, you run past another runner. You smile at each other. Your mood automatically lifts. Apart from the physical endorphins that you are releasing, that are obviously going to give you sort of a mental kick. The benefits to exercising are monumental and they are so invaluable that if I was to enumerate them, we'd be here the whole day. But it's just a lifestyle. I think that where we can strike the balance to say, I'm not calling out your weight because I think you're really losing it, But I'm trying to say to you, let's do this.
Let's
because
save you.
It needs to become a lifestyle. Yes.
Yeah, let's save you. Yeah. Speaking of accountability, Matsepo, you've got an amazing accountability WhatsApp group. Tell us about it. How did it start? Did you start it?
Yes, so I know that Sam did a hashtag 90 days without sugar challenge.
Yes.
And I saw it for most of last year. It's like, and then I thought, okay, you know what? Let's do this. But I love the aspect of accountability that Doctor spoke about and support. And I think the best way to really achieve any goal most of the time is if you have support from people, especially within health and fitness. Because a lot of people, when you're doing it alone, you start and then you just stop, you know, because you just feel like, you know, there's no one cheering you up, you know, and cheering you on. But if I know that I'm accountable to someone else, it makes it easy, you know, easier. You know that, okay, 6 p.m. somebody's waiting for me to clock in and say I've did the workout. Somebody's waiting for me to post the food that I've had. You know, it makes it definitely more, you become more accountable, you know. So for me, I said, okay, you know what, I want to actually join this, but I know that doing it on my own, it might, you know, I might lose motivation along the way. So I said, let me start a WhatsApp group. So we started the first one with, I think it was 27 August last year when we did the first round. And it went well, but this group as well is amazing. From the 3rd, I think it was the 10th of January that we did the other group. And when I say this WhatsApp group is amazing, it's an understatement. Like so far, the active people, I'll definitely say people that check in every day around 10, 12, 13, 15, But there's a lot of people, because you know when we start, everybody's on that bus, we all want to get on it. And one of the rules I put on the first day is I said, you know what, this is not a observer group. You're not going to come in and then just observe. You participate, meaning that you clock in. When you wake up if you're team AM, you clock in your exercises, send us your pictures. You know, if you're team PM, show us that you've worked out. And it's so amazing. I mean, everybody's sending their screenshots of pictures. And then on those days when people cheat, I'm like, you need to be transparent, you know, confess, and then we forgive you and we move on. So we've learned how to make it so fun, you know. And everybody, I mean, we're in 60 days, yes. And the people are saying, you know what, this group has been so amazing. I mean, even I feel it, because the amount of support that we give each other, we carry each other. You know, we have those seasons, some days where people are like, yo, I'm so demotivated today. And then every one of us is like, no, you can do it. Remember your why. You know, because when we started, I said, I had posted to everyone, in addition to the rules, I said, remember, ask yourself, what is your why? What is your why? Why do you need to do this? Because I think if you're going to start any journey, you need to know, why are you doing it? If you don't have a goal, a why, you're going to get demotivated along the way. You know, so when they feel demotivated, we post them back to their whys. They had to post it, you know, we direct them back, remember your why. So that group has been so amazing, and I really want to encourage people that when you start a fitness journey, do it with people, you know, have people that you're accountable to. I mean, I'm so grateful for my mother, because when I started my journey, I mean, she then started to realize that this is working. I mean, after the 21 days, I'm no longer eating as much as I was, you know, and she was starting to see the change. And then she said, okay, I want to actually join in on that bus, you know, and then she also ended up losing about 15 kilograms, you know, within that space. So then, you know, when you're doing it together, I mean, she supported me so much, and then it encouraged other people. I mean, the both of us now, when we get to a restaurant, we barely order anything fizzy to drink. We'll have water with lemon. Not because we feel like, oh my gosh, I have to, like, we genuinely enjoy. My mom will like, I don't know when last my mom has had a soft drink. And she says she genuinely enjoys just having her water at a restaurant. It has become a lifestyle, you know. So doing it in support, in community with people, I think it's so amazing. It is so amazing. It teaches you kindness as well. It teaches you how to be kind to yourself. Because if you have other people being kind to you and cheering you on, then you remember that, okay, I actually can be kind to Mathepo because I'm doing this good thing for me.
I almost feel as if you've touched on my closing question, which I wanted to give you, which is really, you know, for anyone who's listening out there at home and they're overweight or obese and not sure where to start. But what is that one thing, perhaps, that you did not get the chance to share with us this afternoon, that you would tell someone out there at home who's saying, I've heard you, Matsepa, but I'm still not quite convinced.
Yeah. Sure. I think you can see how I wanted to just jump out of my chair and answer that question. The biggest thing for me, it goes back to love, self-love.
Yeah.
You know, if you love, I think anything that you love, you want to take care of. I think we can all agree on that. If you love something, you genuinely want to cherish it. You want to make sure that it, you know, it blossoms, you know. And I think that's how we need to start seeing ourselves as people. When I love myself, I want to take care of myself. I want to take care of my body, that it can take care of me, you know, that it can be with me in the long run, you know. So for me, that is the greatest advice. I always say, even to people who want to start the journey, I always say, listen, you need to be kind to yourself on this journey. You know, I think the aspect of love, of self-love, because people think, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this, and then after I lose 20 kilograms, I'm going to love myself. No, you start to love yourself on that day when you make the decision, because that's where the love is. You choosing to do something about the situation is a reflection of the love that you have for yourself.
Not the hatred.
Not the hatred.
Absolutely.
You know, so you don't wait until whenever to come and love yourself. So every single day while you're walking this journey, you love on yourself more. You become kind to yourself, because there are those days where maybe you won't get it right, and it's okay. You say, okay, today we didn't get it right. It's not a bad life, just a bad day. Tomorrow we're going to try again. So you learn how to be kinder to yourself, how to love yourself, how to love how you look. And then when you stand and say thick and proud, you know that, okay, behind the scenes, I'm actually really doing the things that reflect that I'm proud of who I am. I love myself, you know. So self-love is really the biggest thing that I can share to people to motivate them, you know. Everything is centered around that. And then you remember your why. You ask yourself, what is your why? I think when you have a why, that is the greatest push. On those days when it's hard, you remember why you started this journey. I want to be able to inspire my children one day and create this lifestyle. Then you cannot quit. I mean, if your children saw you starting and then you're quitting along the journey, what does that even say? So because that's my why, I always remember that, you know, it keeps me going. So remember your why. That is very, very, very important. And then just do it. Like, fall in love with it. Don't make it just about the weight loss. You know, some people who are on a diet, they're having salad, but they're always angry, they're grumpy because they're not even enjoying the meals that they're having, you know. Find ways to, you know, make your meals enjoyable, make them fun, try different things, you know. Healthy doesn't mean boring. I think that's what people have the idea, oh no, I'm going to have salads all day. No, healthy doesn't mean boring. I mean, if you're going out, have your meat and then have veggies, you know, that is not in any sense boring. You can get nice flavors, you know. So people must like enjoy the lifestyle. When it becomes a part of you, when it's a lifestyle, it's so enjoyable. You don't look back. You can get to a restaurant, just order water and lemon with your meal, and you don't feel like there's anything wrong, you know. So it's fun, healthy. I just wish I could shout it to the world, like, fitness is fun, running is fun.
It's so infectious.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Human. In closing, how do we conscientize society in becoming drivers of a socially cohesive nation, which we mandated to as a department to drive, you know, a society that appreciates and respects us for the differences that we have, but still being able to live cohesively with each other. How do we become, as a society, the kind that begins to be kinder to those who are living with obesity, and at the same time being able to help them to become a physically active nation? You may have touched on it, but I'd just like us then to just recap it. What would you say?
You know, in terms of societal conceptions of why people are obese, we tend to find that people think obesity is about weakness, and it's about sloth, you know, lazy, fat people that eat so much. And I think if we begin to understand obesity as a disease, it automatically changes our mindset, because then we understand that it's not a conscious decision for someone to just wake up and decide, I'm going to be obese tomorrow. It's a chronic disease, just like diabetes, hypertension, that people struggle with. So the kindness, I think, will come from understanding the reasons why people are obese. And for the longest time, we've associated obesity with people that are just lazy, that eat too much fatty foods, that just don't want to get up from their behind. So I think platforms like this are so powerful because they reach out to such a wider aspect of society to change the narratives. And I think, especially for us as Africans, we've perpetuated these narratives for the longest time. For centuries immemorial, we've had parents patting us on the back if we've gained a few more kilos, you know. And so our generation needs to say it stops here and it stops now. We need to act. So I think that title is so apt. That was formulated for the 4th of March, that it's time we all acted. As individuals, we need to come on board and say, I will not perpetuate false narratives and myths around obesity. I myself will be a living example that obesity can be overcome. And you don't have to start big. You know, you start with small things, following a low-calorie diet, being more cognizant and more conscious to what is on your plate, making exercise about lifestyle and not about punishment or having to do extra labor. But when you take a walk, a brisk walk, or you cycle, or you swim for that matter, if you start seeing exercise as just as much as you need oxygen to breathe, you need exercise to look after this. And that exercise actually allows you, as Matsepo has said, to look after this. And if you love this, then you will not see any of the measures you need to take as a burden. So it's high time we change the mindset. And I loved what you said earlier on about how it all starts up in the mind. You talked earlier on about how you decided no more sugar. I stopped taking sugar when I was in standard 11 back in the day. It's now grade 11 now, standard 9, was not taking sugar. And sometimes people ask me, how you're getting older in life, but the last time I saw you, you looked more or less the same. How come? What's your secret?
Absolutely.
And what I say is my secret simply is I don't take sugar. I drink as much water as I can. I try at least 3 times a week to do some activity that's physical. And what I mean by that is not necessarily going to the gym, because that's another myth that we have about exercise, is that it must be about going to a gym.
Absolutely.
And then all the excuses come along. Oh, but I don't have money for gym fees, and I need to take a taxi to the gym and so on. And it's going to take time out of my day and so on. But like I said, you know, when it becomes something that you begin at home, as a family habit, and what does it take to form something as a habit? 21 days of doing it consistently. Yes. You talked earlier about consistency. And so for us to impact society, we need to start where the whole thing starts, with the self-love. Promoting others, because if you love yourself, you're happy to give that love to others. So promote others. If someone looks good, tell them you look good. If someone doesn't look good, say to them, my friend, I'm worried, you are deteriorating, your weight's getting worse. Let's do this together. I think you need to do something about it. And stop sort of brushing it aside as, oh, but because 1/3 of South Africans are overweight, it's the norm. We only have to look around us to see how many South Africans are overweight. It's frightening. So I think there is much that can be done. And as I've said, we need to act, and we need to start, and we need to start now. And we begin by being living testimonials, just like Matsepo is a living testimonial. People who know her, will now see her now, must be thinking, wow, if she can do it, I can do it.
Or what's stopping me?
Exactly. You know, and it's small achievements. The weight you lost, any amount of weight loss is a huge achievement. So people shouldn't think, oh, but I didn't lose 20 kgs, I'm giving up, you know. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate your birthday. How many people don't celebrate their birthdays? It comes back to the self-love theory of people don't even know when they are born, so they don't even celebrate. When they've lost the kilos, they don't celebrate it. When they've taken the run and finished the 5Ks, you don't celebrate it. So these are small achievements that on a personal level motivates us, gives us more self-esteem, a sense of accomplishment. But I think it's high time we now stopped this narrative being perpetuated that being a couch potato is okay. And the black middle class culture is also seeping in, you know. Black people are becoming more affluent. They can afford to live in the suburbs. They have these big screen TVs. Everyone has their own view in their room. So the kids get to watch TV and the parents are happy that they are being babysat. So
Techno friends.
yes, our generation needs to actively become conscious of these changes in our society, and we can change this. I strongly believe that we can change this, but we all need to act.
We certainly do. Thank you so much, Dr. Herman. Thank you so much, Osmatsepo. This was really, really insightful. And I trust that you at home also got to benefit from all the incredible insights that empowered us today. Thank you to our panelists. Today, we have truly learned a lot. We have demystified the misconceptions and the myths surrounding obesity. Fact, obesity is a sickness. Fact, obesity needs intervention. Fact, how we as a society deal with obesity has far greater risks of alienating those who are plunged then into further depression and other related mental illnesses because of the way we talk to them and the way we talk about obesity. Fact, we can all play our part and act to end obesity by supporting those who are managing it so that we can truly become a winning nation. Because a healthy nation is indeed a winning nation. Ke nna Kgosigadi Nanik Malesa. Ke itumeletse go nna le lona. Tlholang sentle. I choose to be active. How about you?